Welcome to another exciting episode of Red Debates, where we dive into real African stories, real issues, and real conversations. So, here we unpack the topics that shape our continent, challenge our perspectives, and also celebrate the diverse voices that make Africa powerful. So, grab something to drink, relax, get your mind going, and let's get into this topic. So, our topic for this week is traditional African governance systems versus Western style democracies. Which is more effective in addressing developmental issues? So, a bit about this topic is basically not to say which one is better, but which one is more effective and what could be more presented in developmental challenges. So, a bit about the indigenous African governance systems, the traditional systems. These are things such as the elders in our communities, the chieftaincy structures, and communal decision making. So, basically, it's the will of the people who are making the decisions for the people. And then the Western style democracies, it kind of relies on political parties, elections, the law, um, state institutions, basically will of the law. So today we are diving into those type of topics. So we will be examining governance effectiveness in areas such as service delivery, social cohesion, accountability, economic development, and conflict resolutions. So that is a bit about the topic. So first, I'd like us to start with the traditional governance systems. Let us explore that first. Then we'll go to the Western style, and then after that, an overall look at both systems, how it can be incorporated, what needs to change, and stuff like that. So, traditional African governance systems are rooted in local knowledge, cultural legitimacy, and communal responsibility. They emphasize consensus building, restorative justice, and leadership accountability to the community rather than the political parties. These systems often resolve disputes faster, strengthen social cohesions, and are more accessible to rural populations where much of Africa's development challenges persist. Okay, so first let us explore the traditional African governance. So whenever you're ready, please raise your hand and let us engage in the conversation. Hello, Dorcas, you can go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I think a traditional system, I think it was and still remains effective even now, and it's serving a crucial purpose. Yeah, a crucial purpose in the sense that I feel from afar behind, they have been playing a role in disciplining the community. Um, they are the same people who instill we call corporal people who instill corporal punishment. And looking at the perspective of today, that a child, from a perspective of raising a child, that a child belongs to the community, that everyone can discipline a child. That traditional leadership system has even instilled discipline in children of so-called us today. But from shifting it to the modern ways of system where children have rights and so on, the discipline also deteriorated over time. So what I'm basically saying to us is that traditional system has instilled discipline for us during our times. And if you can emphasize that, we would have a peaceful nation and a globe at large. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With regards to the punishment, I don't think it should be. This is just me. I don't think it should be in a way connected. Discipline, yes, but it should not involve You should not hit the child. There are other ways to instill discipline. It's not to say that, okay, now physical violence of sorts must be incorporated. Sure, it's how we grew up, but it shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't. That's not how you discipline someone, or a child. You must, because if you do it like that, I think that you would the child will do it again and again and again and again. And then are you also going to hit the child over and over and over again? No, there needs to be something more. There needs to be a structural thing, a long-term thing where, okay, I'm going to instill discipline on you. This is how, but it does not involve violence. But yeah, thank you, Dorcas, for your point. Let's go to Haulate.
Thank you so much for that. In any case, just to little quip a little bit in what Dorcas said and what you are saying. I didn't want to talk about the discipline as such, but because you guys mentioned it, I just want to say that what Dorcas is saying is quite right. It worked, and disciplining your child is not physical abuse. As a parent, you know the limits, you know what needs to be done. I know that in the Western culture, spanking your child is something that is unheard of. It's something that you go to jail for. But the truth of the matter is, it works in the African context because African parents do not mean to harm the child. They do not mean to put the child in any danger or beat them to a pulp. It's a corrective measure of sorts, and we did grow up in such, and we are fine, we are here. Not, I mean, like, we don't beat to give black eyes at the blue eyes and whatnot. So if it's done right, then it is okay. That's what I think. But in any case, I just wanted to talk about um development, how I agree with you that in the African context, we have um, our elders, our chiefs, our kings, and those are the ones that do mainly decision making with the community's engagement and all of that. But I also want to just say that, in as much as we haven't really started talking about the Western culture, I just want to say that. Um, though development in the African context isn't your GDP growth and whatnot, and involves social cohesion and inclusion and all of that, and social legitimacy, there are a lot of problems with that because mostly we all know that um, African leadership is inherited. You find that her father passes his leadership to his son and all of that. It's not very democratic. And mostly, if the people are to have a say, is to choose one. And in many, many contexts, it's always from father to son or within the family. So it doesn't have a lot of legitimacy and fairness with it. So it's really once in a while you probably get a leader who has an eye for development, but the truth of the matter is they cannot amass enough investments in order to put in the development that is needed. There's a lot of technical expertise and resources that are needed to implement large scale economic projects that a chief in the village cannot do. And it also has a problem of being gender biased because leadership in the villages is for males. It excludes women, it excludes the youth who actually should be at the forefront of making these decisions because it affects them the most what happens in those villages, in those areas. So leadership in the traditional sense can be quite restrictive and very backwards in the sense that it's just disregards legal frameworks and market driven policies that could be out there that could help with development. So without dragging on too long, I just want to say that we love them, they're our chiefs, but at the end of the day, the expertise to lead development are quite small scale, and they won't be enhancing to the whole community as such. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Khaled. I kind of agree with you on your points there about the chieftaincy and it's mostly male dominated. So with regards to that, I think that's why in some cases the African governance does not work, because now you're favoring a specific demographic. And this is especially when the youth is trying to tell you something like this is happening. Why aren't you doing something about it? And then and then the elders and or maybe the chiefs have that mentality of what do these guys know? What are they told? What are they saying? So it kind of hinders progress. So in a way, so I get you when when it comes to that. Some of the traditional systems favors one demographic over the other, or kind of diminishes or belittles the other demographic. Yeah, I get you there. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go to Simon, then George, then Dorcas.
Good evening, everyone. Ask ourselves which system is more effective for development. Is it the traditional African governance system or the Western-style democracy? We have to first ask ourselves, what are we trying to build? If our goal is to manage maybe a single village, a community, where everyone there speaks the same language, worship the same God, and they know each other, I think traditional governance is perfect because it's more familiar, it's more intimate. But when we're trying to build nations, trying to build states, I think we have to scrape away the traditional African governance system. My core argument today is simple. Traditional governance was destined and designed for villages, not for nations, not for states. You cannot run a country like Nigeria, a country of over 200 million people with over 250 ethnic groups, using governance meant for small communities. When you try to scale that style of governance to national level, it will bring about tribalism and to create exclusion, because what a certain group of people see as right, another demographic will see it as wrong. Let's look at challenges we face today in Africa. We want to build interstate railways, we want to connect Africa with the world. We want to conduct international trades with China, with the EU, with America. I don't think African governance, traditional governance, can do that for us. We have to do what people who are developed are doing. The kind of problems we face in Africa, a council of leaders, council of elders under a tree, no matter how much you respect them, no matter how old they are, I don't think they can handle the kind of problems we face in Nigeria, in Africa. When we have a certain group of people, old or young, ruling a country over and over again, if father dies, it goes straight to his child or his brother. There's no separation of power. There is no rule of law, because governance is not based on efficiency. It's based on genealogy. You are born into the family. You already have the right to become the leader. So to wrap up for now, I would say we have modern development challenges. We need a modern operating system. You cannot drive the continent that is striving to go to 21st century with a governance that is still stuck in the 18th century. Let me just use this analogy to wrap up. We see riding horses as safe mode of transportation because it's less chances you get injured, less chances you get crashes. But when you want to travel interstate or to another country, you have to go with vehicles or with aircraft, which are more riskier. Western democracy, it seems more riskier, but it's more efficient. We have to move away from the era of giving leadership based on where you are born, which family you are born into, to an era where our leaders are given based on efficiency. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Simon, for your point. Okay, let's go to George, then Dorcas, and then let us explore the Western style democracy. So, George, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this time for joining you. I would just want to take one or two things on the topic, and in particular, I want to say, as much as we may seem to say that the African system of governance is not that worthy to the larger extent, but you find that it has something to say to do with bringing the community together. That is one thing I can signal out. You find that the broader, it simplifies governance to the areas of jurisdiction. If it is a centralized kind of government, it tackles a particular geographical area. If it's a decentralized kind of government that is spearheaded by the elders council, you find that they work in a particular area, and that one minimizes the issue to do, especially with corruption, because when an issue arises, they are able to know who is who. And in Kenya, we have what we call the Njurinjeka among the Gikuyu, Meru, the people of Mount Kenya. And also you go to the Kushites, we have the Gasa, that is the Council of Elders. When you go to the Luya of Western Kenya, we have what we call the Luya. That is the place whereby people come together to reason and they give out their views. And you find that it promotes a unity among the people. And because you are dealing with the who is who, you know who is who. And then also, this kind of governance blesses the leaders. Even you find that people have to seek consent to be blessed, to be leaders. So it actually works on how to purify a community in a particular way. That's my part. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Definitely, definitely. Okay, let's go to Dorcas and then let us explore the Western leadership.
Okay, I think I still go with the traditional system to say it was effective then. It's just that everything has the both sides of the coin to explore and benefit the whole nation at large. Um, I would say back then our parents would tell you that for them to be allocated some plots, it didn't take them time. It was just quick. And because the land was allocated by our so-called chiefs. And because it was a certain tribe staying in one place there, um, they will know each other who is around. That's why even when you are new into the village, you have to go and introduce yourself to the chief. So that also kept issues of crime and so on. Um, and also the issue of allocating plots. It's unfortunate that because this issue of allocating land now, it's owned by the state or the modern system, it delays people to get plots. And even if you apply today, I'm still waiting for a plot that I applied in 2015, and that is roughly a whole 10 years. My daughter will be starting schooling if I had a child, by the way, just kidding. But what I'm basically saying, it takes long for people to be allocated plots under the new system. And also, because there is no stipulated person who regulates this, because next thing there will be minister of land for maybe 2 years, and then next to 2 years it will be so and so. So that opens a door or a room for issues of corruptions and so on, to say that accountability. That's why we have long waiting lists, but people allocating themselves plots. But in the traditional system, That was way easy. We know that that chief will be there until he goes 6 feet underground. He's not going anywhere. And then the traditional system, yeah, I do agree that it promotes issues of tribalism. Somebody who is not from my tribe wouldn't somehow be welcome to my tribe just because they are not belonging there. But again, looking it from a perspective of oneness, togetherness, and having a belonging, it's something that it goes a long way of Ubuntu thing. You can state where you belong, but yes, because now we are civilized and we are racial mixed races, cultures, and everything, we have to accommodate other people. But what I just want to say is it was effective then. It was effective then, and it still remains effective from my perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dorcas. So now let us explore the. Okay, noted, Simon. Let us explore the Western-style democracies. So now we have evolved. Now we're now bringing in the Western style. So the Western style is institutional checks and balances, constitutional projections, political participation, political parties, elections, democracy, all that stuff. So through elections, independent courts, contracts, formal accountability mechanisms, democratic systems can provide scalable governance frameworks suited to modern nation states. They enable transparency, attract foreign investment, and integrate Africa into a more global and economic system. So now we have evolved from the traditional systems. Now we're slowly getting into the Western side because now the world is changing. Now we're getting into the Western side. So now let us explore what are the goods and bad, what is the advantages and disadvantages? Has it worked before? Is it effective? Things like that. Okay, so first in the chat box, Edward has his response. He says, I recognize that Western leadership models have significantly influenced Africa, but this influence has often prioritized external interest over Africa's own development needs, particularly through the exploitation of natural resources and economic dependency. For this reason, I question the extent to which Western leadership approaches genuinely serve the long-term interest of African communities. At the same time, okay, let me just read it all. At the same time, African traditional leadership systems also present notable limitations. In many cases, leadership remains within a single family or lineage for extended periods, which can restrict innovation, accountability, and exclusive participation, which is what we discussed. This concentration of power raises concerns about fairness, adaptability, and responsiveness to the evolving needs of modern African societies. Given the shortcomings of both systems, I believe that neither Western leadership nor African traditional leadership alone is sufficient to meet Africa's development challenges. Instead, the most effective approach lies in integrating the strengths of both leadership styles. Western leadership contributes structured governance, transparency, mechanisms, technological advancement, and strategic planning, while African traditional leadership offers deep cultural understanding, community trust, social cohesion, and participatory decision-making. So by thoughtfully blending these approaches, Africa can develop. Okay, let's pause there. So yeah, guys, this is what Edward said. So now let us explore the Western style democracy, the advantages, the disadvantages, how could it be incorporated in African governance. So yeah, Simon, you can go ahead.
Okay, so let's not confuse the kind of democracy we see in Africa for Westernized style democracy. First of all, what is democracy? Democracy is government of the people, for the people, and by the people. That is government that the people chooses to vote for. Why I would say That's the perfect style of governance for Africa. Is this? We see more accountability in a democratic style of government, because this is why there is three arms of government normally: federal, state. There's legislative, there's executive, and the judiciary. Like there's checks and balances. If a part of the government of democratic government is going astray, we see the other part trying to bring them back in check. Another reason is this: if we make mistake choosing a democratic leader, the most he can rule is like normally you see 4 years term, 5 years term, but there is a term kind of government. They can't rule forever. When they rule bad, they vote them out. But they brought it to Africa, and Africa has influenced it with a traditional style of governance. If you look at some African countries that are claiming to practice Western-Style democracy, they are practicing it wrongly. Let's look at Equatorial Guinea. They have a president who has been there since 1979. That's 46 years, ruling a country for 46 years. In Cameroon, you have Paul Biya, has been in power since 1982. And for 43 plus years, he has been ruling. In Congo, a president has ruled for 41 years. And we claim that's democracy. That's not democracy. That's African-styled democracy. We have allowed our democracy to be influenced by the traditional style of government. Western democracy is a democracy where we see a sitting president lose. In America, the anointed presidential choice lost to Donald Trump. When Donald Trump was president, he lost. So we don't see that kind of things in Africa, where we claim to be practicing democracy. The people's choice do not always win. So let's bring back Westernized style of democracy, because that's the only way where Africa can move forward. It's a style of governance where we prioritize the best, not just someone who is in line for succession. You will see, look at communities. A community that have a PhD holder will be ruled by someone who has not even attended the 4 walls of a school, and we're looking for development. When we talk about development, Africa's style of leadership cannot take us there. Because there is no accountability, there's no check and balance. It's just based on genealogy, like I said earlier. Just my father was, so I would be. Not I can do this, so I should be. So I think we should try to emulate Westernized democracy more. We've gone out of line. Some African countries are doing perfectly. Let me see, South Africa is doing it perfectly. Ghana is doing it perfectly. Botswana, I think they're doing it perfectly. Senegal is doing it perfectly. Also, some African countries like Uganda, Cameroon, Eritrea, I think we have let African style of governance affect our democracy. So we should try to do better. And the only way to the top is when we democratize our leadership.
Okay, cool. Anyone else would like to share their thoughts on the Western style democracies? Okay, Haulate says, I hope when we talk about these two models, we are referring to the ideal model, not the corrupted, infested version. Yes, we're talking about the ideal one, the one where if we were to combine the two, how would it be? How would it work? What are the steps? What can the Western style learn from the traditional, and what can the traditional learn from the Western style? But we'll get to that in a few minutes. So yeah, basically it's just an ideal. Basically, what would happen if both of them were combined, or if a country were to do one of the systems, what could be improved, or what could be removed totally, that sort of thing. So anyone else would like to share with regards to the Western style? Okay, yes, Dorcas.
I think it's I just got interested when you talked about if one is to exist alone, something like that, and it caught my attention to say, I don't think one way or the other it will be possible to leave the other and go for the other. The reason being that we are historical people, and I think it goes back to issues of culture. We grew up into this, and it's something that is in our bloodstream. That is the traditional part of it. And then coming to the Western part of it, it comes with civilization, and civilization, it's an ongoing ideology, it's an ongoing learning curve, it's an ongoing perspective that we can't wake up on the next day and said we have arrived to our final destination, because it comes with researches, it comes with philosophies, it comes with intellect coming into place. You won't be shocked when in 2-3 years down the line the definition of democracy no longer reads the way it reads to us today as we are having our own debates. So what am I basically saying is, one way we can say in 10 years to come would settle for a one-sided leadership. So it will keep on evolving, both the traditional and the 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 modern system. Sadly, from a country that I come from, it's because why am I using the word sadly? Is because historically part of it, the chiefs or the traditional system has been into place. But then down the line, I'm not sure, because I'm a baby, I would regard myself as a baby, along the lines of around 2008, going now to 2025, it looks like more or like their leadership or their role was downgraded or demoted, if I'm to put it that way. Their powers were less. So now the state took over. Yes, the state has been there, I can't deny that, but so some things were changed. But then, for some reasons, I won't mention, but if you're a Motswana, you will get what I'm saying. Along the lines, it along the lines of maybe 3-4 years back, their powers were now like promoted again, if I'm to put it that way. So what I'm by saying is it goes with a personal choice. It goes with a personal opinion to say what works for me and who is there in leadership, whether he values those who are in power. What I'm saying is, maybe if I was from a traditional perspective, maybe I'm just saying, and then I happen to be the president, maybe I'll I'll put the traditional people, their powers to go up, and then say the state is no longer having more powers, because I am coming from a traditional perspective. But then down the line, somebody takes over, he downgrades their powers. So what am I saying? It's gonna be a journey, and a journey that only needs us to prepare for both. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, definitely. It is a journey. It's a process, basically. So, thank you, Dorcas. Okay, let's go to Nelly T, and then let's think of a way both systems can be incorporated.
Hi everyone. My country, I hope you can hear me. My contribution is that I think both systems can work, but the issue is implementation. And I'll narrow it down to the individuals who are put in the places to implement these systems. And I think the Western system works better because from the social front, they promote individualism, which opens the door for different aspects to tackle implementing a system. compared to the traditional system where it's if you don't conform, you are not given the space to enter decision-making spaces. You're like an outcast. And so like having individuals with the same thought process in mind really doesn't help implementing development, because you're thinking alike, you're doing the same thing over and over again. So I think for the traditional system, if we're to incorporate individual minded people in helping implement the system to help with development and everything else, it could work, because you'll be bringing in different ideas and ways of doing things. So yeah, that's my contribution.
Okay, thank you, Nelity. So it's like a collaboration, different minds brought together for a common purpose, not only a narrow-minded person or a closed-minded person. We need open minds, more people, more ideas. So yeah, that can be a good thought. Thank you, Nelity. Okay, so now let us go to ways both systems, both the traditional and modern systems, can come together and find a common ground. So I just want to share this comment by Edward. He says, by thoughtfully blending these approaches, Africa can develop a context-specific leadership model that prioritizes community needs, protects local resources, promotes inclusive governance, and supports sustainable development that truly benefits African people rather than external interests. So that is Edward's thoughts on if we were to combine the two systems. Thank you, Edward. Okay, let's go to Simon, then Luzolo, then good luck.
So I would say, what way can the two systems merge together to give us a better style of governance? The thing is, the Western style democracy is not all beautiful, not all good, and the African type of governance is not all bad. There are things we could pick from it, because our different countries, our different regions in the past that operated under this African style of democracy, they did quite well. So we should be talking about how the democracy we use today can take and its pick from the one we used in the past to make a better style of governance. There are many issues with democracy, because it's like side A versus side B. If you look at the US, it's the Democrats versus Republicans. One side is always fighting against the other side. And governance should not be like that. We cannot rule one life in Africa. Africa, and we are different. We're like family. We don't operate in two sides. We work as one. There is Africa, as in Africa, live based on unity. We don't live dividedly. So we can't emulate that kind of style. There are many ways in the past where we resolved issues that we could also bring to the type of governance we want to operate now. I saw something like I would even want to ask you, Mrs. Chongwe, to tell us more about the Legotala. They said it's a type of way they settle issues in South Africa. I think that is a way we could even emulate, because the court system we see is more divisive. A part can go and influence the judge to to influence the result of the case in court. But if we use the kind of systems we used to settle disputes in the past, where the community come together to argue out a matter and find a solution to it, I think we'll do quite better. And there are also other things we could learn from the past. When a leader, when a king, a good king or a good traditional ruler know he has the power to take the community or his region for his lifetime, he'll be more intentional with governance, with leadership, because he knows the future of his children, of his grandchildren, rely on how successful he rules. But we see leaders in Africa, because they know it's just a 4-year term, a 5-year term, or a 8 years max. They will do things and run away. They won't strive for the betterment of the country. They say, if I don't do it, someone else should do it. Or since the person who ruled before me did not do it, why should I be the one to do it? So we should take from what our fathers in the past did. They know they are responsible for the growth of the community. They're more intentional with it to ensure everyone gets a piece of the cake and everyone gets better under their rule.
Okay, thank you, Simon. You know, the South African court system, I'm not that familiar with it, but I think there's this thing where they do involve the community, a community thing like a jury. I think a jury can be effective. I don't know if there's a jury in Africa. I only see it in American contexts, but I don't know if a court jury where a jury decides the fate of a criminal, you know, or decides on a certain law or whatever. But I think a jury can work. A jury of people who are not non-biased. They just bring the ideas together and provide and create the laws that will better the country and community at large. So yeah. Okay, thank you, Simon. Let's go to Luzulo. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Then good luck, and then Biringiro.
Yes, it's right. Luzolo. I am from Angola, one of the Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa. I would like to say that more free speech because I can see in my country, Angola, they can kill young people just for saying the truth, and I know that it happens in many countries in Africa. Traditional African system can learn from Western-style democracy, formal accountability by introducing mechanisms to hold leaders responsible, like laws, councils, and oversight, equality and inclusion. Because I see that most governments here and in Africa, they don't engage with youth. So equality and inclusion ensure young, women, and minorities have formal voice in decisions. More rules of law decisions should follow clear, codified rules, not only customs, and structured governance. Use planning, more data, and formal institutions for large-scale projects like infrastructure, health, and education. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Interesting point you made there. And it's tragic that when you're trying to say something that is for the good, you get stopped, you get killed, you get injured. It's sad because you're voicing your opinion, or you're voicing a fact, or you're voicing something right, but then you get punished for that, and it's sad actually. But and also your points for incorporating accountability, council systems like that in traditional systems, that can also work because then it will lead to less of this thing of oral contracts, or and because you said this sort of thing, at least if it's on paper, then it's okay. Thank you, Luzolo. Let's go to good luck.
Okay, so the system of the first thing I would say is the system of government depends on the individuals in power. That is the first thing I will first of all mention. Do we also know that before we are talking about the Western system of government, implementing it in the African system of government, we should know that majority of major development we have in Africa were done through the traditional system of government. I don't know if other countries have experienced it. Major large scale projects that were done in my country, Nigeria, were done majorly through the traditional system. So all systems of government depends on the individuals and power. The Western countries have responsible leaders. In Africa, we have few responsible leaders. Leaders that have empathy instead of sympathy. Because most we majorly experience in Africa as sympathetic leaders. People that just come online and tell you, yeah, we feel sorry for so and so that happened in this particular region, and we are so sorry for that. But you are not creating a way to change it. So even if we try and say we are combining the system of government, if you put me there and I decide to be corrupt, no system of government can change who I am. Remember, in Africa, most of us are using democratic system of government. But at the end of everything, you will still find out that citizens don't have right to talk. There is a way you are going to talk, they arrest you, they say it's hate speech, they say it's this. Even the Western countries, most of the countries in the Western regions that you are seeing, they are also doing that. There's no freedom of speech. Citizens find this difficult to the extent that we are now having bias in journalism. You see someone is writing stories that are not meaningful. News we get now, sometimes you see news online. When you go to the site where the incident happened, it's different from what you are seeing online or on the newspaper. So combining the system of government is not the solution. The traditional system of government works perfectly fine. For example, some persons are saying, I want to use this particular country for example. When Gaddafi was in charge, some persons said Gaddafi did the right thing. Some said Gaddafi did the wrong thing. But if you look, majority of development in Gaddafi's country were done during Gaddafi's region, during Gaddafi's reign. And that is why some major school of thought will tell you that what Gaddafi did was right. Some will tell you that Gaddafi was doing this, he did not give his citizens right. What I'm suggesting is this: if Africa can have the right leaders, not even emulating the Western system of government, they can have the right leaders. Before now, we're using traditional systems whereby kings were in charge, and we're still living fine. Before the issue of democracy came into the onset, we're still living fine. So if we can have accountability leaders, responsible leaders, not leaders that will come online and tell you they feel sorry for insecurity in your region. But at the end of everything, if you go back to the scoreboard, you notice that most of insecurity are caused by them. Elections are coming up in most majorities of countries. Go and check what is happening at the background. You would see that they are also actually the cause of most of the insecurities we are experiencing in Africa. So what we need is we should still maintain our African traditional system of leadership. But what we need is responsible leaders. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good luck. Yeah, I think the key word here is responsible. Like there are a few key words here: responsibility, accountability, fairness, all those good values, good governance values. Whether you're traditional or Western, those words are important. If you don't have that, then the country's gonna fail. It just is, or the community is just going to be in chaos because there's no systems, no one is accountable, corruption is in the system. It's just chaos. So yeah, thank you. Good luck. Birangiro, are you still here? Your hand was raised.
Thank you, Sifiwe. Actually, I would like to give my own opinion as how I see as how to this could work out. But first, we need to understand how the two systems work. First of all, in African traditions, we see that majorly all things are done communally. And when it comes to Western style of democracies, we see that theirs, it is individualism. Everyone is responsible for his own problems. And then in Africa, we see that when a problem arises, maybe in families or when people have personal issues, there is what they could bring their problems to the elders to solve their problems. But when it comes to Western civilizations, we see that when someone has an issue with another person, they actually go. Someone has the liberty of getting a lawyer, going to the courts, and this is very different with African traditions. So, how I could try to bring the two systems, I could say that the ball is already is already rolling or it is already in place. For instance, in marriages, we see that couples are already allowed to freely date people that they want, which is just juxtaposed with the African tradition, whereby you could see that marriage was actually arranged, whereby a girl could be given husband without actually knowing the person. But now it is very different, whereby someone is allowed to to get a couple or a partner freely, and then the introductions and our discussions are done by families. And then another issue is that uh, in Western civilization, what has promoted in Africa, there is what we call women empowerment. The roles of the women have changed dramatically. We're seeing that women are doing things that African women couldn't do in the recent past. This is actually bringing a good cause, and I could say that by allowing the Western civilization to come into Africa, I would say that in the larger extent, it could bring a good impact. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, okay, we are running out of time right now. So let us do concluding thoughts very quickly. What are your concluding thoughts on this? What is the way forward? Can these two systems work together? Yes or no? Or maybe, or is a country better with only traditional system or only a Western system? So I'd like to hear your concluding thoughts on this topic. Okay, yes, Godfrey.
Okay, thank you. I think one of the common thing across Africa is the Ubuntu concept. I am because we are. And that brings about communities, and it is coming together and doing something functional and managing themselves. And in our different countries, different cultures, even within the same country, the different communities have their way of doing things. And what my opinion is that we need to really put down, encourage ourselves, encourage governments, and to put safeguards that protects that those that are working, the systems that are working, the traditional approach of managing issues in the community are working, so that they are both, it is safeguarded, so that if it is in a particular village or a particular community, this is how they used to answer to an issue, then that one it's safeguarded by policies and recognized by the government. That is the democratic government, so that we don't get to lose everything and just turn everything around. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Godfrey. Let's go to Simon.
Okay, so I would want to go back a bit to what Goodluck said. We should wait for response. We should look for responsible leaders. It's not about the system. I quite agree with him, because if the system does not allow for irresponsibility, you cannot be irresponsible. If there is no loophole for irresponsibility, you cannot be irresponsible. You can be irresponsible, but when you go into a system that does not allow for irresponsibility, you must do what is right. When the system does not allow you to steal, you cannot steal. And which system is that? It's the Western style of democracy. How many of us can speak against our traditional rulers? If you do that with some people, you can get stoned to death. But we can speak against our governments, our government, our president. Let's stick with that one and try to make it better. Our tradition is the custodian of our past, the custodian of our culture. But if we want to move forward, we must use democracy as a vehicle. Tradition looks more inward. It looks backward it looks at what we were before. But democracy looks outward and forward, building what can be. We cannot drive our continent into 21st century with a system of governance that stopped working long ago. Democracy is the best bet to a better Africa. We should not be talking about how to practice the right democratic style of leadership. To start the practice in UK, in France, in US, it's proper. But when They brought it to Africa and we have analyzed it. We have let the rot of our traditional style of leadership get into it. So the issue is not with the system, it's with us. Let's look inward and try to practice democracy as it should be.
Okay, Simon, thank you. Yeah, good point there, actually. I think it lies on the person. If you're not responsible, then what are you doing in power, basically? So yeah, thank you, Simon. Anyone else? Okay. So for me, both systems can be incorporated. The modern system can learn from the traditional. How the modern can see how these traditional systems worked in the past, how it was effective, what were the rules and guidelines, and what are the results, why were these traditional systems working. And then vice versa, the traditional systems can learn something from the Western side. The traditional can learn that there are systems involved, there are rules, there are in inclusion. There must be inclusion, planning, overseeing, have things on paper. So I think both systems can learn a thing or two from each other, and in a way it can be used effectively for a country, So by that, maybe it can, for example, an elder council in the village can kind of present their issues and suggestions to the government, and then the governance, the political parties can also kind of work together with them to provide messages, announcements, basically telling them that here's the law, guys, let us adhere to this law, because this is the law, this is what's going to, not to say bind us, but at least guide us to the right path, and that processes are fair and non-biased and everyone is included. So an overall conclusion for this topic is, based on what is discussed, there are some mixed reactions, mixed views. Some prefer the African traditional, some prefer the Western. But for a common goal, for a common thing, I think it lies on responsibility of the leaders, responsibility, accountability, non-biased, they're fair. And yeah, basically, if we have those values, then I think a system, a good governance system, can work for the people, by the people. The law is in place. The traditional values are not taken back, are not put back or belittled. They're also valued. So both traditional African governance systems and Western-style democracies offer valuable strengths, and they do face notable limitations. So, but again, we are in different African countries, and the results may differ, results may vary. So the development challenges are complex and diverse, suggesting that no single governance model offers a universal solution. Sure, it may work for a certain community, but now we're talking national level. Now we need something that will represent everyone, every tribe, every community, every village, every urban area. So now these two systems needs to be put in place so that everyone benefits. So if there is indigenous governance practices with democratic institutions, it may offer a more effective and context-sensitive pathway towards sustainable development across the continent. Therefore, service delivery is on time. There's more fairness, there's no corruption. Everything is on time and it is ideally perfect, So I think, again, to close off, both systems can work together at the same time, just as long as the leader who is doing these systems is responsible, accountable, fair, and unbiased. Yeah. So that is the discussion for this week, guys. Thank you all so much for joining in. The insights that you have shared for this topic is very interesting and very, like, we have to think about it a lot. So yeah, thank you guys so much for your insights.